All right. So I just want to start actually with the question that I asked you when I walked into your office. And I said, I'm a little bit familiar with poetry. I'm using Carolyn Forche and some Kominaka. But I was kind of confused particularly about if you have to be present at an event to witness it personally in order to write a moving actual poem of witness. And my specific example that I asked you about was Strange Fruit, the song, which was adopted by so many landmark Black performers, but was written by a Jewish man in the Bronx. So that's where we started, and I'm curious about your answers still.
Yeah. So, I mean, the question of what poetry of witness is and can be and should be is it's a huge question with a lot of different entry points for it. And so that would be one of the very first things that I would assert is this idea that witnessing and being emotionally and intellectually and compassionately present is one of the universal requirements or requests that is made of what poetry of witness should be doing. In some cases, yes, the answer is you should be there, you should be present, you should be sort of physically implicated in the experience that you're witnessing, particularly when you're paying attention to marginalized communities that very frequently have their voices erased, removed, obfuscated, shifted, changed, used against them. There is something about the poet's presence and attention and having something at stake, right? With that experience that you're describing, that's very important. That being said, one of the most pressing charges of poetry of witness is moving just these kinds of stories that I'm describing, stories that are too frequently made invisible, too frequently easy to ignore or to not see, moving these into a larger conversation and a broader community. And with that in mind, we cannot solely depend on the people who are part of the communities who are experiencing the situations that are being described to speak. Sometimes because they're actually literally not there, right? Mm-hmm. When we're talking about genocides, when we're talking about the slave trade, the African slave trade. I'm always really careful, for instance, when I'm using the word slave trade now, because actually we're living in a contemporary moment where slavery is actually rampant so when those stories are being told, you can't always have the people who are directly out of those communities. They may not have the time, ability, or inclination to be able to write those stories, but poets can report out, right? And so I think to limit only the people who are immediately part of the communities at the center means limiting the stories that can be told. So if you are not part of that community, that means a raised attention has to be paid, true compassion, a great deal of research, a lot of just kind of core knowledge that needs to be shown so that you are not actually becoming part of the repeating of the violence, right? But part of the whistleblowing
right.
instead.